tomorrow. But you didn't put any work in nourishing it, in nurturing it for it to become a tree. So the work starts now. And this Agenda 2040 has 10 aspirations. And please be patient with me, Comrade Yalo. I want to get into these 10 aspirations because I want to expound them to answer your question about government's role as Namibians, and our commitments to this Agenda 2040 and what we're doing and what we can do better to make this a reality. So I'll start with aspiration 1, and it reads, the African Children's Charter, as supervised by the African Children's Committee, provides an effective continental framework for advancing children's rights. And that is, of course, done through the Agenda 2040, through the Charter, and any other frameworks, such as even the African Youth Charter, to allow, as you know, children become from infancy, and when they are 13 onwards, they fall into the category of youth. You know, it's basically yin and yang. They overlap, basically, in due time. Then the second aspiration that I want to touch on a little bit is 2. Aspiration 2 reads, an effective child-friendly national legislative, policy, and institutional framework is in place for all member states. And reflecting on Namibia, and Namibia being a country that is very young, we're only 31 years old. Most of the African countries were independent before us. We have done quite well around this aspiration. And why do I say this? Well, in Namibia, we have what we call the Children's Ombudsman. Just like we have the Ombudsman, who is sort of the people's representative to take issues related to social, economic welfare of Namibians, the Namibian government, led by the SWAPO party, made it possible to say that children should also have their own designated champion in the law, in a policy framework to deal with children's issues. And we have an advocate of the court who is a legal practitioner and advocate who is our children's ombudsman. Then the third aspiration is every child's birth and other vital statistics are registered. It's very important when a child is born for them to have a birth certificate. Why? Because once you have a birth certificate saying you are a member and a citizen of a certain country, you get the protections of that country. When you are a Namibian, the Namibian government recognizes you as one of theirs. You understand? So it's important when children's particulars are registered. If they don't have a birth certificate, how are they going to attend school? They're basically persona non grata. Personally, for me, it's a particular interest because when I did my LLB, my dissertation was on statelessness in Namibia and Africa, looking at when children are born in conflict countries on this continent. We had Angola for a very long time, our neighboring country, that was in conflict until 2002. Many of those parents ran away from the war, came to Namibia, and their children are unregistered because either they were born not in Namibia, maybe in between when they were traveling to Namibia, but if they were born in Namibia, their own parents don't have documents to prove that they are Angolan for them to have at least a certificate saying they are Namibian by birth. Statelessness is a serious issue, and if every child is registered and is recognized and benefits from child grants, all those things that government gives, we are contributing to the nourishing and nurturing of children. Then the fourth aspiration is every child should survive and have a healthy childhood. This I cannot stress enough. We used to have a very high child-to-mother mortality rate, where children died at birth, where children died in their mother's wombs and came out stillborn. But I can tell you now, if you look at the statistics through the Ministry of Health, we are almost at 100% rate, where no child dies in Namibia because of mortality rate. Yes, we are not there yet, but a lot has been done to try to limit the mothers and children dying at birth in our hospitals. The fifth aspiration is every child should grow up well nourished and with access to the basic necessities of life. I think here it's very clear. We have what we call food banks. And that's really through the Harambee Prosperity Plan 1 and 2 to try to ensure no child goes to bed hungry. And the rollout, you can see, has made a significant impact on children either not being malnourished, children having the energy to play, the energy to learn, all of that. And on top of that, through the Ministry of Gender, we have what we call the Orphans and Vulnerable Children Grants. Children that come out of homes where their parents are unemployed or their parents are no more. They qualify for an amount of money given to them by the state for them to be able to afford basic necessities of life. That is government's commitment, and those are the policies that are in place and that are working. Then the sixth one is every child benefits from fully from quality education. I don't even think I need to expound on this. Sharonda is here. You know, quality education that constantly needs improving, of course, but our education allows the likes of all of us sitting here to take charge of our future. Many places or many countries on this continent, their education does not have any role to play in whether a child becomes successful or not. In Namibia, if you do get an education, the likelihood of you living a successful life are very high, and that's something we can be proud of. I have three more, if you bear with me.
No problem, wonderful.
Number 7 is every child is protected against violence, exploitation, neglect, and abuse. We have what we call in this country gender-based violence, and it sometimes also extends to children, where children are abused in the process. I cannot tell you and expound on the scars that children carry into their adulthood. Inherited trauma, child trauma, that makes it very difficult for them to grow into the successful adults they should become. And that's why it's important, every child should be protected against violence. Whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's psychological, whether it's sexual, and all kinds of exploitation. Children should not work who are under the age of 16. They should be in school like Sharonda. They should not be on the streets selling food. They should not work in mines, in factories. That's not their place. So they cannot be exploited in that manner, and they should not be neglected. Parents, this village that we talk about that raises a child, communities, churches, all of us, comrades, we cannot neglect our children. A child is dependent on their parent, on their guardian. If we neglect them, how do we expect them to turn out? And most importantly, we cannot abuse our children. They will not be able to thrive in life when we give them trauma before they even know who they are as human beings. We cannot have that in our society. The 8th aspiration is children benefit from a child-sensitive criminal justice system. Just a few months ago, the Justice Minister, Comrade Yvonne Dausab, indicated that we will have a child justice bill that will come to Parliament. And this is important because children sometimes find themselves not on the right side of the law. Either due to circumstance, due to making of mistakes, whatever may be the case. Children sometimes find themselves on the right side of the law, but the law must still protect them because they are children. They are not adults. They still have a long future ahead of them to contribute to the country. If we don't protect them, even when they've done something wrong, they will never learn from their mistakes, and they can never come back and, build our country. So it's important to have that law. But more importantly is we have what we call regulations in court that support children who testify. Many children sometimes are witnesses to crimes. Now imagine a child going to testify in a court of law against their father who killed their mother in the cases of gender-based violence cases. It's a traumatic experience. Their father is sitting over there and the child is explaining what happened that day. So in courts now we have a system where children are behind a screen. They do not have to face their perpetrators or the people that perpetrated the crime. They are protected from the trauma that comes with that whole experience. So They're accompanied by their family members, their guardians can be with them, a social worker, a psychologist can be with them to explain to them what the court wants to know. So it's a very friendly, child-friendly exercise, yes, to get the justice we want, but not traumatize the child in the process. So we have that now in our court system, and it's something that is really valuable to the welfare of a child. Then the ninth one, which is the aspirations now, is every child is free from the impact of armed conflicts and other disasters or emergency situations. Namibia is a post-conflict country. The liberation struggle was long and bitter. And the most vulnerable people in that time were children. Of course, women and children, but children most especially. If you check across the continent, countries that have conflicts, wars, civil wars, children sometimes or most times suffer the most. But to bring it on the other side, an emergency situation is like what we're experiencing now, COVID-19. It's an emergency situation. Imagine being a child, school is being disrupted here and there, your parents lose their jobs because of the situation at hand, where lives need to be saved, and government trying to balance lives and livelihoods. All of that is traumatic for a child. Having sick parents, losing a parent to COVID-19, losing family members, classmates to COVID-19, and the mental health issues that come with that. All of that really, as a society, and I don't think this is government's role alone, as a society, as aunties, uncles, comrades, as cousins, as teachers, as nurses, as social workers, all of us, church leaders, all of us, need to check in with our children and see that this impact of COVID-19 doesn't scar them for life. And then the final aspiration, Comrade Yalo, is African children's views matter. I can say I'm a testament of that.
Definitely.
My voice mattered when I was a child, and it gave me the confidence to speak more and to be confident and to want to speak more. It's important as adults. I can say I'm an adult now, and because of my lived experience through that, I know how important it is to make children's voices matter. Their views are important. We cannot go back to the old African adage that children are only to be seen and not to be heard. We cannot go back to that. Children are an integral part of our society and communities. They deserve to be heard. Once they are heard and once we're able to dialogue, then we can guide them. The reason why children rebel against our teachings and rebel against what we tell them to do is because they don't feel heard. They are only seen. They need to be heard, and it's important for us, all of us, to ensure they're able to be heard. So finally, Comrade Yalo, comrades who are tuning in, how is this all relevant to Namibia? And later on, how is this relevant to the SWAPO party as a movement, a political movement in this country? The truth of the matter is the success of this Agenda 2040 is the success of Namibia. If African children, including Namibian children, through all these 10 aspirations are reached, then we have a better future as Namibia. Namibia forms part of the African Union and is an active participant in the issues affecting the development of Africa. And also, an Africa fit for children means Namibia being a place where children are nourished and cared for, and therefore a Namibia that is fit for children, trickling down to our communities, our homes, and other public spaces. And we, in turn, as a country, will be able to accelerate the implementation of what we call our Child Care Protection Act of 2015. And for me, this is a very important act because it was the first law in Namibia after independence focusing on children's issues. The law before that was in 1960, and it was a law brought in by the apartheid government. So it was a very outdated law. And personally for me, in my personal experience, I was consulted as a child around the issues in that particular law. So for me, it's a personal affair. Also, if all Namibian children survive, live, and thrive, Namibia in a few years' time will be the pinnacle of Africa. We can be the oasis state that makes sure Africa thrives. And children are an investment like a tree. When you plant a tree, me and you might not be there alive to see when it becomes such a beautiful, big grown tree that provides shade to hundreds of people. But you don't wait for hundreds of years for you to plant that tree. You need to plant that seed today for that tree to exist tomorrow. And that's what children are. They are investment. We need to plant them. We need to take care of them so that they're able to be standing trees, Namibian and African trees, to carry the development of this country forward. So the business of children is everyone's business, and we need to take it seriously. And you know, a fun fact I'd like to add here for everyone is that when Namibia became independent in 1990, the first international law it signed and was signatory to in September 1990 was the Convention on the Child. So that was the first law Namibia thought, you know, this is the first thing we need to sign to protect the welfare of our children. And that was the first international instrument that we became signatory to when we were a fresh country outside of apartheid and colonialism. So in conclusion, why is this relevant to the SWAPO Party? First and foremost, the SWAPO Party is the liberator of all Namibians. All Namibians, including children. In 1976, Soweto, South Africa, young people, and at the time majority children, marched against the apartheid government's official order to make Afrikaans compulsory in township schools that were predominantly black. And I can say confidently that at the same time as a country, we were under the same apartheid government rule. And that time, we have already waged a SWAPO Party, a war against the apartheid rule. And I'm sure comrades of that time were in solidarity with that 1976 uprising. And we can only be proud that although we lost lives, over 500 children and young people were lost, we were able to transform what was then the Bantu education system into an education system where black children like you and I can benefit from and be self-actualizing adults as we grow up. And of course, lastly, for the SWAPO Party, it values children's views, it values children's representation in the form of the pioneers movement. It has taken a decision to say that the SWAPO Party ideals and the SWAPO Party principles value children. We want to nourish them, we want to guide them, we want to be there for them. And we're giving them an opportunity to have a platform called the Pioneers Movement for them to go through the ranks and in society, growing up with the same ideals. You and I and Comrade Regina are products of such Pioneers Movement, and look at us now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable. It's not an engagement until you have an Honorable to elaborate and give us a glimpse on what the government is doing in terms of Agenda 2040. Just to briefly highlight what I picked up from Honorable Emma is that whatever a child does reflects us as the elders, and we need to groom, we need to nurture our children, we need to love, we need to care, we need to feed, we literally need to do everything. And it's just not one parent that must step in because they are the birthright parent, but us as a community, us as a nation, and us as Africa. I want to hear, I've been waiting for Sharonda to actually give us what are the challenges and what are the possible suggestions that perhaps she can advise, since you are here from the government side, that she can advise you on what the children want, what learners want. So, Ms. Sharonda.
Thank you. I would like to welcome Honorable Emma Theophilus, Comrade Yalo Shimi, Comrade Regina Kapuka, and Elfbro.
To start off, it's your platform.
Yes.
We are here for you. We are here anytime. Feel free
Yeah.
We want to listen to what you have to tell us today as a learner.
I would like to welcome Honorable Emma Theophilus, Comrade Yalo Shimi, Comrade Regina Kapuka. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all the viewers that are watching from different media platforms. My name is Sharada Tandekatabeni, a grade 7 learner at Irish Primary School and a member of the Learners Representative Council. I am very pleased to have been invited to speak here today on what our very special day of us, for us, the African child. As an African child and African learner in Namibia, we face many challenges such as limited of parent involvement, overcrowded classrooms, many learners in urban and rural areas going to school on an empty stomach, lack of proper school building, lack of technology advances in our education system, lack of proper sanitation, bullying, high teenage pregnancies, high drugs and alcohol abuse amongst learners, and vandalization of school property, unqualified teachers at some schools. Parent involvement plays a very vital role in a child's performance and a child's discipline at school. When a parent is involved, the child learns the values and importance there, and therefore they reduce bullying towards other learners. If parents are
Involved.
If parents are involved in their children's day-to-day activities, begins open with their children on important issues, educating them and giving them advice on pressing issues, that will be a few cases of teenage pregnancies, alcohol and drug abuse, and school property vandalism. Parents are educators and also influence to the children. They play a very important role in their lives. If more classrooms are built at the existing schools, there will be a reduction in the number of learners in a class and or create two sessions a day, morning and afternoon classes, to reduce overcrowding. Although we have school feeding programs in some regions, I feel that other areas such as Commerce region need more feeding programs, as it has a lot of fortunate learners, and I believe that those learners will benefit from the feeding programs, such as sense of belonging and learning different life values during this program. If more computers are sponsored to different schools, especially in urban areas, the urban areas will help develop learners knowledge on a lot of things. It helps them to clear picture of things and remembrance them to reflect to real life situation. As our population grows, we need to develop new schools which will help reduce overcrowding in schools, increase in bullying, more advantage and good quality toilets at all schools, especially in urban areas, will help reduce poor sanitation, most especially during this time of COVID-19. May God bless the Namibian and African child. Happy African Day. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharonda. Honorable, I think I picked out a few stuff that I would also like you to elaborate in Sharonda's statement. She spoke about the feeding programs.
Yeah.
She spoke about the technology, since you are the Deputy Minister of ICT. She also spoke about more schools being built, more toilets being built, sanitization-wise, because we are facing COVID right now. So how far is the government in those aspects?
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Sharonda, for your statement. Very important issues you raised, and I'm very happy that you're here with us today. You could share your voice to the discussion. So yes, issues related to whether it's school feeding programs, the building of schools in respect to classrooms and sanitation, and just even also the education curriculum as an area. So I think I'll start off with the current situation now being COVID-19. The National Planning Commission was tasked along with the Ministry of Education, and that's Arts and Culture, to renovate and refurbish some of the schools across the country, of course, that have a more dire need than others. And a substantial amount was invested by government in that. I don't remember the exact amount now, but it's over $1 billion Namibian dollars, just starting March last year to date. So many schools where toilets were refurbished or new ones were built, where there were no water tanks or water taps. The agriculture minister facilitated for water to be available to schools. So great strides are being made in that regard. I think it's also worth mentioning that when it comes to our national budget, the highest chunk goes to education. More than 15% of our national budget. So if in the government kitty we have $100, for example, 15% or more goes to education alone. And that's quite significant because you don't see that quite anywhere really on the continent. Other issues will get priority, as they should, because all issues are important. But government's commitment to education is almost unparalleled. And of course, because our country is vast and wide and we're sparsely populated, we still face those challenges. Where some areas the population is growing faster than the government has money to create and build more classrooms, or perhaps train more teachers. But with that commitment and investment, I think we will get it right sooner than later. In respect to technology, it's the same thing. When the pandemic hit, first of all, we assisted the ministry in facilitating online learning for learners. We availed them our operators that are government, state-owned enterprises, telecom and MTC, to see how we can connect more schools to networks to allow for teachers to be in touch with their learners, how we can upgrade certain network infrastructure in the regions to allow documents to be exchanged on mobile phones between parents and teachers, for example, and facilitated other opportunities that allow us in future to ensure that every school has a computer lab, for example, and also to ensure that every child knows how to use a computer when those computers come to the school. So those are some of the strides we're making as a government to see how we can best support the education fraternity. And like I said, it's everyone's business. Everyone chips in a hand when it comes to the education of the Namibian child. And that has always been government's commitment, and it will always be government's commitment.
Thank you so much. Comrade Regina, would you like perhaps to give us any insight on how the education system has been affected by COVID right now? Learners moving from face-to-face to...
Well, thank you, Comrade Yellow. This is not news to me, given the fact that I'm a student myself. So, having to shift from being taught in a setting where you are looking at a lecturer or a teacher in cases of the high schools and primary schools, to having to have a laptop in front of you where you then listen to a lecturer talk. Already there's a change of environment. There's a change in the way that the information is communicated, the way that information is delivered between the lecturer and the student. So that in itself already has an impact on the learning process, because then your mind is not accustomed to the new method at which information is being delivered unto you. So for us as students, having to change from now a face-to-face learning mode to that of online, that in itself already has caused a lot of changes in the way we perform and the way that we receive what is being given unto us. And also, I think it's important to point to the fact that not everybody has the means to attend online classes, or at least not everybody has those means ready. The ones that were able to get the ones that were able to put themselves in a position where they are now able to attend online classes could have had to scratch their pockets in order to make sure it was able. But also, I think it will be selfish to not give credit to the government for meeting us halfway, like Comrade has just alluded here, giving us an insight of what the government has done. So I feel like it is important that we also realize and appreciate the effort that government has done in terms of bridging the gap between face-to-face, having to shift from face-to-face learning to online platforms. So that in itself, and I feel like the fact that we don't know when COVID is going to go, it's high time we start getting used to some of these things and creating a new normal and getting used to what we deem as a new normal. And getting used to having online classes and, changing the mindset of face-to-face to online classes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorable, let me come back to you.
Yeah.
We have a revised curriculum. Is there a future where we perhaps have a revised curriculum where we don't only focus primary school in theory, where we can also change into technical, studying at a younger age, because not everybody is blessed to read. Some children are blessed to become already mechanics while they are young, and then now they have to go through a whole process. Perhaps you can give us an insight on that as well.
Yes, no, definitely. Complementing the theory part of learning, our government also tries to really capacity vocational training facilities, schools and centers, to give the necessary skills to Namibians of all walks of life to use their hands and their able bodies to make a livelihood of themselves and their families. The current curriculum, as it was revised, is one that through the ministry has clearly announced to try to get more children through the schooling system ending at grade 11, and to give them opportunity then to choose what they want to do. Do they want to go to higher institutions of higher learning? Do they want to go to a vocational school? So that's what the new curriculum has sort of made possible for learners learning from that curriculum today. But I do not think it will be out of the ministry's interest and need to revise the curriculum in future. I think as comrades, it's important for us to see how the curriculum performs. Let us not denounce it too early. Just like we were forced to do to transcend from face to online because the situation didn't allow. And of course there'll be hiccups here and there, but it is the future. And so the new curriculum also has intended goals and results it wants to achieve. Let us embrace it, because the more we embrace it, the more we're able to support it for it to work. So I think it's very imperative that we're able to allow the new curriculum to do the work it's supposed to do and to deliver on its deliverables as intended by the drafters, and then for us to see the results. And in future then, when we do our monitoring and evaluation, re-look it and do the revision that you speak of to see how then best can we accelerate quality, accessible education to every Namibian in all its form, theoretical and otherwise.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank you all, our panelists, Comrade Regina, Honorable, Ms. Sharonda. Thank you so much for making time to come here and engage with the Namibian youth. Even though we have so many challenges that we are facing, we're the Namibian children, we are grateful to the caring government of the Republic of Namibia for taking care of the Namibian child in different offices, ministries, and agents. We feel honored to have a nation that is willing to play its part in the growth of the Namibian child. We feel blessed to have a community that is ready to contribute to the well-being of the Namibian child. We feel inspired to have leaders that are ready to invest in the Namibian child. Before we end, actually we are at the end, but we have come to an end, and let me just leave our viewers with videos from pioneers across the country that have different messages in their in their mother tongue and also in English that they would like to share with the nation at large. Thank you so much for coming. I am Ialo Shimi, and I am pleased to call this an end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Date se moye te tu comanda. 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 Date se moye te tu comanda.
Pioneers, attention! Pioneers, today you are pioneers. Tomorrow you are the youth, men, women, and elders.
Discipline, courage, and loyalty shall be our principle.
Pioneers, let's pay respect and honor to Comrade President Sam Shafishuna Nujoma.
Long live the president.
Pioneers, let's salute the 21st March 1990.
We have won.
Pioneers, let's salute the 26th August 1966.
Never forget.
Pioneers, you are the future loyalty and the defenders of the Namibian revolution. Be prepared.
Ever prepared.
Pioneers, pioneers at ease.
Good day, Namibia, Africa, and the whole world at large. My name is Baima Tuchavifeni and I'm from Erongo region. African Child's Day is a day of raising awareness on different situations faced by an African child, be it health, basic needs, and the continuity of improvement in the education of all African children. I am a child of Africa, young, wild, and free. I play on streets of sunny hope and feed on dust.